Have you ever noticed odd coincidences that seem too perfect to be random? These moments might be more than mere chance. Carl Jung, the renowned psychologist, called this phenomenon synchronicity. It's the idea that events are meaningfully related without apparent causal connection. This concept revolutionized understanding of life's seemingly random occurrences, offering a new lens through which to view experiences and potentially opening hidden depths of meaning in daily life.
I was always looking for something in between, something that linked that remote past with the present moment. And I found, to my amazement, it is alchemy.
Jung's quest for a link between past and present led him to alchemy, a pivotal insight for his theory of synchronicity. This discovery opened doors to understanding the hidden patterns that weave through our lives, connecting seemingly disparate events in a tapestry of meaning. Jung's work looked beyond the surface of experiences and considered the possibility that life is far more interconnected and purposeful than previously imagined. The dynamic unconscious. Jung's view of the unconscious mind departed radically from prevailing theories of his time. He saw the unconscious not as a mere repository for repressed thoughts, but as a dynamic, creative force, constantly influencing conscious experiences and behaviors.
I had written that book that cost me my friendship with Freud because he couldn't accept it. Yes. To him, the unconscious was a product of consciousness. Yes. And it simply contained the remnants. I mean, it was sort of a storeroom where all the discarded things of consciousness were heaped up and left. But to me, the unconscious then was already a matrix, a sort of basis of consciousness of a creative nature, namely capable of autonomous acts.
Jung proposed that the unconscious acts as an active participant in our lives, bubbling with creativity and autonomous action. This dynamic interplay between conscious and unconscious forms the backdrop for synchronistic events. Those meaningful coincidences that seem to defy logical explanation. Jung's theory suggested that the unconscious contains not only personal repressed material, but also a deeper layer he called the collective unconscious, which houses universal patterns and images. Jung's early experiences played a crucial role in shaping his theories. As a youth, he encountered unusual phenomena that defied conventional explanation. For instance, he once heard a loud crack and discovered a solid walnut table had split from rim to center. 2 weeks later, a similar incident occurred with a bread knife shattering inexplicably. These events sparked Jung's lifelong fascination with the mysterious and unexplained, laying the groundwork for his later theories on synchronicity and the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious and archetypes. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious posits a shared reservoir of experiences common to all humanity. This theory suggests a deep, fundamental connection between all human beings, transcending culture, time, and individual experience.
The archetype is a force, it has an autonomy. It can suddenly seize you. It is like a seizure.
Yes.
So, for instance, falling in love at first sight, that is such a case. You see, you have a certain image in yourself without knowing it of the woman, of the woman.
Yes.
Now you see that girl, or at least a good imitation of your type. And instantly you get a seizure and you're gone. And afterwards you may discover that it was a hell of a mistake. And that is the archetype. That is so-called archetype of the anima. When a man sings very high, then he thinks he must have a very wonderful spiritual character because he can sing the high C.
Yeah.
And she's badly disappointed when she marries that particular number.
Yeah.
Well, that is the archetype of the animus.
Within the collective unconscious, Jung identified archetypes, universal, archaic patterns and images that derive from the collective unconscious and are the psychic counterpart of instinct. These archetypes appear in dreams, art, myths, and religions across cultures. Examples include the mother, the hero, the wise old man, and the trickster. Jung believed these archetypes influence our behavior and experiences, often without our conscious awareness. Jung's work with archetypes was significantly influenced by his study of Eastern philosophy. In 1928, he received a copy of The Secret of the Golden Flower, an ancient Chinese alchemical text, from his friend Richard Wilhelm. This text, with its emphasis on mandalas and the integration of opposites, resonated deeply with Jung's own work and helped shape his understanding of archetypes and the process of individuation. Synchronicity, a causal connecting principle. Jung's concept of synchronicity challenges the usual understanding of cause and effect. It suggests that events can be connected by meaning rather than causality, proposing a universe far more complex and interconnected than a simple mechanistic model would suggest.
For more than 30 years, I have interested myself in this oracle technique, or method of exploring the unconscious, for it has seemed to me of uncommon significance. It relates to a certain curious principle that I have termed synchronicity, a concept that formulates a point of view diametrically opposed to that of causality. Since the latter is a merely statistical truth and not absolute, it is a sort of working hypothesis of how events evolve one out of another, whereas synchronicity takes the coincidence of events in space and time as meaning something more than mere chance.
You know, there are these peculiar faculties of the psyche, that it isn't entirely confined to space and time. You can have dreams or visions of the future. You can see round corners and such things. Only ignorance deny these facts. It's quite evident that they do exist and have existed always.
Synchronicity, as Jung defined it, consists of two factors. A, an unconscious image comes into consciousness either directly, as a dream, thought, or vision, or indirectly, as a symbolic event. And B, an objective situation coincides with this content. The principle of synchronicity presumes that the subjective and objective realms are not as separate as we typically think, but are in fact interconnected in ways that defy conventional scientific explanation. Jung's ideas on synchronicity find intriguing parallels in modern quantum physics, particularly in the famous double-slit experiment. This experiment demonstrates that particles can behave as both waves and particles, and that the act of observation itself can influence the outcome. This quantum behavior, which seems to transcend conventional notions of cause and effect, resonates with Jung's concept of synchronicity, suggesting a deeper, acausal order to reality. The psyche beyond space and time. Jung argued that the psyche isn't entirely constrained by the physical laws of time and space. This bold claim opened up intriguing possibilities for how we perceive and interact with reality, suggesting that consciousness might be far more expansive than typically assumed.
Now these facts show that the psyche, in part at least, is not dependent upon these confinements. And then what? When the psyche is not under that obligation to live in time and space alone, and obviously it doesn't, then to that extent the psyche is not submitted to those laws. And that means a practical continuation of life, of a sort of psychical existence beyond time and space.
Jung's theory proposed that the psyche can transcend the usual boundaries of time and space, potentially explaining phenomena like precognitive dreams or telepathic experiences. This concept aligns with certain interpretations of quantum physics, which suggest that reality at its most fundamental level doesn't conform to our usual understanding of cause and effect, time and locality. One striking example of this concept in Jung's life was his experience of catalytic exteriorization. During a conversation with Sigmund Freud about parapsychology, Jung felt a strange sensation in his diaphragm. Suddenly, there was a loud noise from a nearby bookcase, startling both men. Jung predicted another such noise would occur, and indeed, moments later, it did. This experience reinforced Jung's belief in the interconnectedness of psychic and physical phenomena, challenging conventional notions of causality, the interplay of conscious and unconscious. Jung emphasized the constant dialogue between conscious and unconscious minds, a dynamic interplay shaping perceptions and experiences in profound ways. This ongoing interaction forms the backdrop of mental lives, influencing decisions, relationships, and understanding of the world.
Synchronicities rest on the simultaneous occurrence of two different psychic states.
Consciousness is one factor, and there is another factor, equally important, that is the unconscious, that can interfere with consciousness anytime it pleases. And of course, I say to myself now, this is very uncomfortable, because I think I am the only master in my house, but I must admit that there is somebody in that house that can play tricks.
In Jung's model, the ego, the center of consciousness, constantly interacts with unconscious material. Dreams, for instance, were seen by Jung as communications from the unconscious to the conscious mind, often compensating for imbalances in the conscious attitude or presenting information that the conscious mind has overlooked. Jung's personal experiences with the unconscious were profound and sometimes disturbing. In the years following his break with Freud, Jung underwent a period of intense inner turmoil, which he later called his confrontation with the unconscious. During this time, he experienced vivid visions and engaged in active imagination, a technique he developed to interact directly with unconscious content. These experiences formed the basis of his Red Book, a deeply personal record of his inner journey that was only published decades after his death. Archetypes and personal development. Jung's work with archetypes revealed their potential for personal growth and transformation. These universal patterns, embedded in the collective unconscious, serve as powerful forces in psychological development.
It was out in nature. I stood in a field of wheat, an enormous field of wheat that was ripe for harvest. And I was a child. And I held her in my arm like a baby. And the wind was blowing over that field of wheat. Now, you know, when the wind is blowing over wheat field, these waves in the wheat field. Yes. And with these waves, I swayed like that, putting her as if it were to sleep, you know. And she felt as being in the arms of a God, of the Godhead. Mm. Therefore, you see it in me. Yeah. That clicked. She suddenly became aware of an entirely heathenish image. Yes. That comes fresh from the archetype, because that value is in herself. And that is a sort of liberation. Yes. And that is, of course, makes her complete, you know.
Jung believed that engaging with archetypal material, particularly through the process he called individuation, was crucial for psychological health and personal growth. Individuation involves integrating unconscious contents into consciousness, leading to a more balanced and whole personality. This process often involves confronting and integrating one's shadow, the repressed negative side of the personality. The concept of the shadow is particularly important in Jung's psychology. He saw the shadow as containing not only negative qualities that we prefer not to acknowledge, but also positive potentials that have been repressed. Integrating the shadow involves recognizing and coming to terms with these disowned aspects of ourselves, a process that Jung believed was essential for genuine self-knowledge and personal growth. The importance of psychological understanding. Jung stressed the critical need for deeper psychological insight, both individually and collectively. He saw this as crucial for addressing the challenges facing humanity, a view that remains profoundly relevant in our complex, rapidly changing world.
One thing is sure, a great change of our psychological attitude is imminent. That is certain.
Why?
Because we need more. We need more psychology. We need more understanding of human nature, because the only real danger that exists is man himself. He is the great danger, and we are pitifully unaware of it. We know nothing of man, far too little. His psyche should be studied, because we are the origin of all coming evil.
Jung believed that many of humanity's problems stemmed from a lack of self-understanding. He argued that by neglecting the unconscious and focusing solely on rational, conscious thought, modern humans had become disconnected from their instinctual roots and the wisdom of the psyche. This disconnection, in Jung's view, led to psychological imbalances that manifested in societal problems. Jung's emphasis on psychological understanding extended to his views on global affairs. He saw many of the conflicts and crises of his time as expressions of collective psychological processes. For instance, he interpreted the rise of fascism in Europe as a manifestation of the Wotan archetype, a primitive god of storm and frenzy in Germanic mythology. This perspective highlights Jung's belief in the power of archetypes to shape not only individual lives, but also collective movements and historical events. Psychology as a holistic discipline. Jung viewed psychology not just as a treatment for mental illness, but as a comprehensive approach to understanding and enriching human life. This holistic perspective sees psychology as a tool for personal growth, self-discovery, and even spiritual development.
Soul is a complicated thing, and it takes sometimes half a lifetime to get somewhere in one's psychological development. You know, it is by no means always a matter of psychotherapy or treatment of neuroses. It is all psychology has also the aspect of a pedagogical method in the widest sense of the word. It is something. Education. It is an education. It is something like antique philosophy, and not what we understand by a technique. It is something that touches upon the whole of man, and which challenges also the whole of man.
In Jung's approach, psychology addresses the whole person, not just isolated symptoms or behaviors. He incorporated elements from mythology, religion, alchemy, and Eastern philosophies into his psychological theories, creating a rich, multifaceted approach to understanding the human psyche. This holistic view sees psychological development as a lifelong process of growth and self-realization, rather than simply a means of treating disorders. Jung's interest in alchemy was particularly significant in this regard. He saw in alchemical symbolism a rich metaphor for the process of psychological transformation. The alchemist's quest to turn base metals into gold paralleled, in Jung's view, the psyche's journey toward wholeness and integration. This perspective exemplifies Jung's ability to find psychological insight in diverse cultural and historical sources. Jung's insights into synchronicity and the human psyche offer a rich framework for understanding life's mysteries. His theories propose a view of reality where meaning and purpose exist beyond mere cause and effect, and where the individual psyche is intimately connected to a broader, collective unconscious. While controversial and often at odds with mainstream scientific thinking, Jung's ideas continue to influence fields ranging from psychology and anthropology to literature and popular culture, offering a unique perspective on the human experience and the nature of reality itself. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. This is just the beginning. Stay tuned.